Talking to Cornelius. Conversation 14. When you first arrived in Van Diemen's Land, old man, the United States of America did not have a Pacific coastline. The lands of Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico and Texas were all on the Mexican side of the 1844 border, though Texas was an independent republic and the 1836 Battle of the Alamo was still a fresh memory. War raged between the expansionist United States, with its sense of manifest destiny, and Mexico through 1846 and 47. The war commenced on the questionable claim that Mexicans had shed American blood on American soil. Abraham Lincoln, a first-term member of the House of Representatives, questioned that claim. Abolitionists believed the war was really driven by a Southern desire to expand slavery into Western territories. US troops rolled into Mexico and took the capital. California, New Mexico and Texas were ceded to the United States as a consequence in 1848. The new US territory of California was only mentioned 14 times in Van Diemen's Land newspapers in 1848. The Hobart Courier, on the 5th of January 1848, described the territory as a barren and half-explored province. The town of San Francisco was mentioned 3 times in the whole year. There was some interest in reports that the boisterous Americans were now planning to build a railway line that would stretch across their entire continent, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It was a development that was sure to open up new trade opportunities in the Pacific. It would take another 20 years, including the brutal span of a civil war, before the transcontinental dream was finally realised. But things suddenly changed in California. The place was mentioned 63 times in the Van Diemen's Land newspapers in the first month of 1849 alone. The mountain territory just east of San Francisco had become a focus of global attention. Everyone was talking about California. People in covered wagons, the original 49ers, were racing across continental North America. People in crowded ports from London to Canton were negotiating passage to the place. The first gold was discovered in January 1848. It took a year before the impact of the Californian gold rush was felt in the streets of Hobart. We have received, per Euphemia, dates from California to the 20th of June. Our files of Californian papers up to the date of their death have come to hand. The yellow fever has taken hold of all the members of the craft there, from the editors to the imps, and carried them off to the gold mines. The only item of interest is the news from the gold diggers. Other matters receive no attention. The whole country is in a state of turmoil, and everybody's flying to the gold region to reap a fortune. All the seaport towns are deserted. Out of a population of nearly 1,000, San Francisco only contains about 50 or 60 souls, and these would leave were it possible. The news of the gold discoveries has spread with lightning speed, and the minister, merchant, artisan, mechanic, farmer, labourer, and loafer have all gone to seek their fortune. Farms and crops are deserted, and all branches of business are at a stand. Up to the latest dates, there were some 2,000 men, women and children on the ground digging, and the roads were thronged with multitudes more pressing forward to obtain a portion of the glittering treasure. The Hobart Courier, 10th of January, 1849. The news had an immediate impact on the Hobart waterfront. There was money to be made, stirring up dreams and shipping people to California. The path to fortune began by securing passage and walking up a gangplank at the new wharf. Advertisements soon filled the papers. For California Direct, about 7 weeks sail from Hobart Town and to sail in a few days. The clipper brigantine John Bull, T.E. Robinson, Master. Should 25 passengers offer, for passage only, apply to J.T. Waterhouse, Packet Office, New Wharf, January 10th. A most favourable opportunity to emigrate to the above place, and for enterprising men to make a fortune. For Sandwich Isles and California, the fast-sailing schooner Eliza, 120 tons, will sail on Thursday next. Early applications for passage only is requested. Inquire of Captain Shard on board or of John Johnson, New Wharf, Thursday, January 11th. For California Direct, to sail on or about the 5th of February, the fine, fast-sailing coppered and copper-fastened brig Marianne, 280 tons burthen, Samuel Lindsay, commander. The above fine vessel, now undergoing a thorough repair, will sail for the new gold mines in California on or about the above date. For further particulars, freight or passage, apply to Nathan Moss and Company, Hobart Town, January 12th. The Hobart Courier, 13th of January, 1849. The news from this strange land on the other side of the Pacific was so charged with promise, it led to spontaneous meetings in the pubs of Hobart and Launceston, Melbourne and Sydney. A meeting of the working classes took place yesterday evening at the Commercial Hotel Collins Street for the purpose of taking into consideration the news recently received in Melbourne relative to the mining operations in California and deciding as to whether it would be advisable for them to adopt measures for securing their immediate passage to that locality. There was a very numerous attendance, and the chair was taken by a mechanic named McCoy. The time of the meeting was occupied chiefly in a conversation concerning the climate, productions, and government of California, in which Messrs. Cashmore, Bernard, Reynolds and Short took a prominent part. A couple of sailors who had visited the country of gold mines described the climate as being equal to that of Australia Felix and particularly healthy. Mr. Cashmore said he had no doubt, if a sufficient number of persons offered, that a vessel could be procured in this port and laid on direct for California, and although not disposed to live there himself, he might try a little speculation if he saw a chance of succeeding. Mr. Reynolds strongly advocated the necessity of taking steps in the matter immediately and suggested that any person present wishing to proceed there should put down his name on a document which had been prepared for that purpose. He was of opinion that even if there was no gold in California, the working classes, men like himself, could not be worse off than they were here. Colonial Times, 26th of January, 1849. And where were you in the midst of all that excitement, old man? I think I can accurately say 1849 was the year when you were straining at the bit. And being a Donnelly, that meant there was a high likelihood that things were going to go pear-shaped. Your record is a little hard to decipher, but I think it went something like this. You were originally granted a ticket of leave on the 16th of January 1849 at precisely the time when all the news and excitement of California was electrifying the struggling working class of Hobart. Freedom was so close, you could just about sniff it in the air, especially down near the New Wharf, where the tall ships were starting to offer passage across the Pacific, and booze was fueling the business of the Californian dream. You were little more than 23, and feeling all those possibilities of the future, one could strike on the other side of the ocean, and a man might make his fortune. But that ticket of leave meant there were restrictions on your life. You had to report for musters. You had to stay in an assigned territory. You had to observe curfews. It was an improvement on being a probationer, but still frustrating when the future was so close. You were reported for misconduct, for being out after hours on the 27th of February 1849, and on the 10th of August you were not only out after hours, but also charged with assaulting a constable in the exercise of his duty. You were given hard labour for that, and I presume you lost your ticket of leave, as there was a second record of you gaining it, or more precisely, regaining it, on the 22nd of December 1849. I have no doubt, if you had the opportunity, you would have been bound for California that year. If I know one thing about you, old man, it's that you had an appetite for opportunity. You felt it so strongly it sometimes made you a bit haywire, and it sometimes led you to the bottle. But I also know this, old man. The history of your descendants was shaped not only by the choices you would positively make, but also the apparent frustrations to your dreaming.